Hi everybody, hope you're all well. Happy holidays. I thought before the year was up, I'd share two products that may be of interest to you if you own a Mac Pro from 2019. One of the products works on both the tower and the rack mount, whereas the other product is just for the rack mount. So let's check these out. One thing that's really irked me was when I upgraded to this machine, I had a ton of 2.5-inch SSDs kicking around. And there's a ton of space inside this machine and nowhere to put them unless you buy a PCIe card that can house two of these, or if you buy a bracket thing from Apple that you're forced to buy a hard drive with, which is many, many hundreds of dollars. And I was like, why isn't there a solution to mount drives? Like, how hard can it be? These have been around forever. I know Apple were forging ahead and only went with PCI Express 3, but SATA 3 or 6 gig drives still aren't slow for a lot of applications. Like, I mean, 500 plus megs a second is pretty fast for most applications. If you're doing backups, you have your photo libraries on there. Not everybody needs PCI Express 3 or PCI Express 4 data rates for copying their files. Like, come on. So I was really bummed that there was no immediate solution in here. Apple kind of screwed us a little bit because there are two SATA ports in there, but there's nowhere to mount these things unless you buy their overpriced adapter that you're forced to buy a hard drive with. So what if there was an alternate solution? And in fact, there is. So let's take a look. Check out macpro.io. It's an Australian company, and they've created a carbon fiber bracket that can house up to two 2.5-inch SSDs. Not only that, it also comes with the power harness. So it has Apple's power on one side and two SATA power cables on the other side. So for $65, you're completely set up to drop in two SSDs that you probably already have kicking around. So let me show you how this thing actually is put together. So I opted for the $65 kit, and that includes the power cable, and it also comes with this bracket, these four little sub brackets, and a bunch of little screws. I provided my 2.5-inch SSDs, obviously, two really short SATA cables, which I got for like $4 or something like that at a local computer store, and two additional screws because I did a little bit of a hack. So the installation of this is really simple, takes less than 5 minutes, and I'll show you how I've done it here. So if we look at our SSD, we have mounting points on the bottom, but we also have mounting points on the side. So with these mounting screws, you can mount this in a few different ways. You could either mount it like this, or you can use the side holes and mount it like this. So I'm going to mount two drives together. You can see this is almost like Meccano. I'm using these two little thingies to hold these drives together. And SSDs are so light that it's solid, even just on one side. Like, this thing isn't going anywhere. It's a beast. I'm also adding them to this side, and I'm only doing one set of screws, and you'll see why in a second. So that's in there. Yeah, totally solid. And now these two holes that I haven't put screws in, I'm going to take my longer 3mm screws, and I'm going to mount this right on top. So check this out. So there's the assembly, the bracket holding these two 2.5-inch SSDs together. Very simple. At this point, I'll attach my two SATA power cables, and I'll also attach the SATA data cables as well. So this is it. Super simple. As you can see, these drives are very solid. They're not going to go anywhere, even if I'm holding it by this bracket. And my cables are ready to go. So let's see how this thing mounts into the Mac Pro. So you can see how much dead space there is in here. But we do have our power header right there, two SATA headers, and then a USB port, which I'm using. You'll notice up here, there's this little bracket thingy. So that's the only thing we have to take off. So I'm just going to remove this. I'm just going to be careful not to drop the screws. Make sure you don't lose this little clamp because we'll need it. At this point, I'm going to plug in my cables. Very simple, like any other computer in existence. I'm going to plug in the power header. So that's in. And all we have to do at this point is just align it up here. So you'll notice, like, if you hold this up, the holes won't actually align. And that's actually by design because these holes actually match up with these little nubs on this bracket. So all I have to do is align those two holes with that Mac bracket, hold it in position, and then screw it back into place, and we're up and running. And that's it. These drives are solid. They're not going anywhere. So there you have it. Here's a solution for under $70 that lets you mount two 2.5-inch SSDs. You can utilize those two SATA ports, and you're not wasting any PCI Express slots to house these drives. Perfect. So I'm going to close up the machine, and now I'm going to show you a product that may be of interest to Mac Pro rack owners. So as you all know, I've been very critical of Apple right from the get-go on how deep these Mac Pro rails are. Like, I know 24 inches is an industry standard rack depth for servers, but didn't they have 7 years to figure out that this was also for audio and video professionals as well? Like, where did that disconnect happen? Anyway, the point is 24 inches is way too deep for most rack mount furniture used in the audio and video side of things. And also it makes travel cases huge because the computer itself is only 19 inches deep, give or take. And the minimum clearance of these rails is 24 inches with the rails. So that means the case would have to be another 4 inches on top of that. So it's massive. Thankfully, there is a solution, and that solution is out of a suburb of Vancouver called Upgrade Innovations. They've engineered a solution that lowers the minimum rackable distance, which currently is 24 inches, all the way down to 16. That's a huge difference for audio and video people, especially if they're mounting this computer within their desks. And the reason it's not going in a machine room is because of Thunderbolt 3 and just the limitations of the length of your monitors and your drives and all these things. So being able to have this Mac Pro rack in your desk properly is a big deal. So what they've done is allow us to use the existing rail guides, but just add to it. So they've created this thing here that literally slips on top of the existing rail guide. And from that, it slides onto its own railguide system, and it fully utilizes the Mac Pro's front locking mechanism. So once the Mac Pro is in place, it will lock just like it's using the existing Mac Pro railguides. So this is 16-inch depth, and you can see this is night and day from 24 inches. So this is as deep as your desk would have to be if you're mounting it in your desk. And to adjust it, it's really easy. You basically unscrew these 4 screw points, and you can just slide it along their guides. So you can actually go all the way to 24 inches if you wanted to, but minimum 16 inches. So very cool. The one thing I should point out, though, the main difference between this and the supplied rails is because this is so shallow at 16 inches, you have to take the machine completely out to service. And that just makes sense from an engineering point of view. There just isn't enough depth to be able to hold the rails in place without the machine falling out. So that's the one caveat of this. If you're using this for travel, the machine has to fully come out to get to any of the insides to replace a card or add RAM or whatever. So you might be thinking, oh, amazing, this is perfect. I can actually mount this in my desk or my studio cabinet furniture properly, but my furniture doesn't have rear rack rails, so what am I gonna do? The answer is really simple. You can just go to any AV supplier, buy some 2U rack mount rails, and just mount these to the back of your desk, really simply. So that solves that problem. And if you're using this for a portable setup, you just have to make sure whatever case you're using has the rear rails in place. And I'll show you that now because I have one behind me. So here's the existing Mac Pro rack rail guide. And all we have to do is take this little guide thingy and slip it on. And then there's a little screw here just to keep it snug and in position. And that's it. That's all you have to do on the computer itself. I've done the other side, so let's take a look at the rails. So this is my portable flight case, and I believe the rails are about 19 inches apart. And because I'm not exactly sure, I just took the front half of the rail off, and I'm going to mount that first, and then I'll mount the rear part. You'll also notice that the front screws are inset and beveled, so they sit flush with the front of this, just like the actual Mac Pro rails. That way, the rear of the Mac Pro's front plate will hit flush with this and allow the locking mechanism to work. Okay, so the front and rear screws are in place. Now I have these 4 little bolts, and I can align them by hand really easily. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now that they're in place properly, I can just take my 8mm hex and just tighten these. One rail is in place and good for a permanent installation. And it's not 24 inches. This is closer to 18.5, 19 inches. So I'm just going to do the other side now. So I have those 4 little pieces in place. Now I can just tighten them. They don't have to be super tight. And there we go. The other side is finished. And at this point, we're ready to put the Mac Pro into the actual case. So I'm going to drop the machine in just so I don't blow my back. So the machine's dropped down, it's locked in place, and it's ready to go using these specialized rails. So there you have it. This is a shallow rack mount solution for the Mac Pro Rack 2019 Instead of the minimum 24-inch clearance that Apple gives you, you can go down to as low as 16 inches with the Upgrade Innovations Mac Pro Rail Kit. So check it out. You might be on set, you might be portable going back and forth between studios, you might have shallow rack furniture in your studio or suite. The problem with all this tech now is the I/O is so fast that the cable runs are so much shorter. And there are some optical solutions out there, but all the ones I've tested in the past have failed within a year. So I'd rather have the machine close by. So fitting it into your furniture versus just haphazardly throwing it under your table or something, way better solution. So definitely check it out. Until next time, have a great holiday, and we'll see you in the new year. Cheers. Bye.